son a millennial, my daughter's a millennial.
That's what mine, well, my younger son's.
Oh, yeah. Well, welcome. I will call to order the February 1st, 2024 Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Business Meeting. Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please do the roll call?
Yes, thank you, Chair Smith. First, staff support today, Clerk to the Board, Tony Mayernick, County Counsel, Stephen Madcore. Commissioner Shull is out of the office today. Commissioner West may phone in. We're not sure yet, but if he does, I'll let you know. Roll call, Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you've joined us via Zoom for this meeting and are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. General public comment will be taken at the usual allotted time. I would like to remind all participants, including staff, all elected officials, and the members of the public, that Robert's Rules of Order will be followed during this meeting. We welcome your opinions and look forward to your polite participation. I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Clackamas County Development Agency Board of Directors. Gary.
Thank you, Chair Smith. This is a public hearing for the Development Agency of Clackamas County. Item 1, approval of a resolution for a Clackamas County Development Agency supplemental budget greater than 10% for fiscal year 2023-2024. Total value is $1 million. Funding is through tax increment financing. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Chair Smith, Commissioners, we are here as you have done these before, a supplemental budget. Each fiscal year, essentially, there may be the necessity to adjust revenues and or allocations throughout a budget for expenditures that weren't considered or thought of when the budget was originally developed. I think all of you are clearly aware that the development agency had a property over off Audi Road that was set ablaze. And essentially, we have reacted to that and mitigated that. And I'm pleased to announce that demolition and mitigation on that site are complete. The site is secured, et cetera. Essentially, this is an effort to adjust our budget to make sure we have a legally accurate budget going forward to cover those expenses. Essentially, you have statutes dictate the fact that we have the ability to, any public entity has the ability to adjust their budget through a supplemental budget process, a public hearing, as we're doing here today, when occurrences or conditions that were not ascertained when preparing the original budget come forward, or there's a pressing necessity that could not reasonably be foreseen when preparing the original budget. Essentially, we had an intention to demolish that particular building. We had a process. We had dollars budgeted to do that. We were in contracts to demolish that building properly, and the fire was an unexpected circumstance. So essentially, we are here before you today to answer any questions you might have and to have this public hearing to adjust and ensure the development agency's budget is legally binding and is legally accurate. So
Great. Do the directors have any questions? Director Savas.
Yeah, Dan, I do recall that you were out for bid, and a good bid was accepted to demolish the building prior to the fire, as you stated. My question is, what was the total cost after all the mitigation from the fire? I mean, obviously it exceeded the original amount, but it did contemplate a fire. So what was the total price tag for that fire?
$673,427.
Oh, geez. Perfect. Thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions at this time? I will now open the meeting for public testimony and take in-person testimony first on this particular hearing with the Development Agency. Is there anybody in the room who would like to testify on the supplemental budget for the Development Agency? I see no one in the room. Tony, do we have anyone online who would like to testify?
If you would like to testify on the Development Agency public hearing, please use the raise hand feature and I will call on you in the order received. Madam Chair, I do not have any hands raised at this time.
Gary, is Ben West joining us?
Commissioner West has now joined online, yes.
Thank you, Commissioner West. You're just in time to vote on this. I will now, I will now close the public hearing and ask if there are any further questions on this issue. I'll entertain a motion. It's in our packet.
Move to approve the Development Agency consent agenda, or the hearing, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Approval of resolution for a Clackamas County Development Agency supplemental budget for fiscal year 2023, 2024. Total value is $1,000. Funding is through tax increment financing.
Second.
Commissioner Savas has moved that we approve the resolution for Clackamas County Development Agency supplemental budget greater than 10% for fiscal year 2023, 2024. It has been seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Any further discussion? Thank you. Please call the poll.
Director West.
Aye.
Director Schrader.
Aye.
Director Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. I will now adjourn as a development agency and reconvene as a Board of County Commissioners. Gary, do we have, what's next?
Yes, thank you. Next is the consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. Tony, would you please read the consent agenda?
Elected officials, item 1, approval of previous business meeting minutes for the Board of County Commissioners. Item 2, approval of a grant agreement for the Oregon fiscal year 2023-2025. Justice Reinvestment Program, grant value is $1,246,164 for 1 year. Funding is through the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. No county general funds are involved for the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. Item 3, approval of a grant agreement with the Federal Bureau of Justice Assistance for the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Program. Anticipated grant award is $800,000 over 4 years. Funding through the U.S. Department of Justice. No county general funds are involved for the Clackamas County District Attorney's Office. Technology Services, item 1, approval of a lease agreement for One Neck IT Solutions LLC for rack space in a Bend data center. Total value is $37,900 over 5 years. Funding is through the Clackamas Broadband Exchange cable lease revenue. No county general funds are involved. Health, Housing, Human Services, item 1, approval of amendment number 3, expanding the scope of work and increasing funding of a personal services contract with the Father's Heart Street Ministry for emergency shelter, winter shelter, and housing navigation. Amendment value is $1,483,954.52 for 8 months. Contract value is increased to $4,763,816.52 for 2 years. Funding through Metro Supportive Housing Services Measure Funds. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval of a revenue intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Human Services for Older Americans Act and Oregon Project Independence Programs. Agreement value is $8,162,820 for 2 years. Funding through the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Oregon Department of Human Services, with matching funds of $261,628 in budgeted county general funds.
Thank you, Tony. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Schrader has moved that we approve the consent agenda, and Commissioner Savas has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please call the poll.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Well, we're right at public testimony. Welcome, everyone. This portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of county business which are properly the object of board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the BCC is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon Revised Statutes and County Code. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public communication at bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. I will now open the meeting for public testimony, and I will take in-person testimony first. I have 2 cards. If anybody else would like to testify, please fill out a card and put it in the basket, and we will pick that up. Thank you. Up first, Mike Hammonds. Please come forward, state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Mike Hammonds, Damascus resident. I've been before you before, asking for your support to change policy to allow a development within the city of Happy Valley. I want to first thank you for allowing me to come back, let you know that we're making great strides. As of last time, we were not on even the 20-year master plan for sewer for that area. Since then, meeting with the director of WES, we are now in that 20-year plan. We've received a letter that says we're about 8 years out. This particular project has a public hearing schedule, or a pre-application meeting with the City of Happy Valley on February 13th. I've been trying to get to you. I don't think in 3 minutes I have the capability of explaining and convincing you what I need. And so I'm taking this time to ask you to put me on as an agenda item at a maybe even your next work session, so I can share with you the details. This project has in effect, a locked gate. It's the policy that WES is operating now that will not allow a pump station. Even though a pump station is going to be required to serve the entire drainage basin, our project is proposing to put a temporary permanent pump station in until such time, supposedly 8 years in the future, that WES is able to serve the property. This property has a development of about 1,200 units. About 500 of it's expected to be low-income housing. There's expected to be about 1,200 neighborhood jobs within the development, and all of that is at a standstill if I can't talk you guys into changing the policy, directing staff to work with us on our time frame. And that's why I'm here.
You still have 45 seconds left.
Thank you. I give up the rest of my time. And
Any other comments for commissioners on this?
I'll just say that I have reviewed your material, and I do understand, and I'm very sensitive to this. If I don't know if you watched our meeting last week when we talked about WES, I'm very sensitive to how much investment we make and how that is in the best interest of the district ratepayers, how much of that is development paid, and making sure that the ratepayers are not burdened with short-term and especially long-term consequences or impacts, long in the future. So I'm very sensitive about those impacts to ratepayers. So therefore, a pro forma that it makes sense and has an ROI and is heavily supported by whatever development it may be. If you have an LID, you have a number of people willing to pay a fair portion of that improvement. That's something that could give a lot more credence and justification for us to do that. But it sounds more like development, and developments go through apps, and they don't come to the county commission first typically. Anyone, please correct me or add on, but typically, we're at arm's length until there's a solid proposal that can come forth that is supported by the jurisdictions, in this case the city and WES, and it'll pass that muster, that test of is it in the best interest, and by the way, what is the investment that's being made? And developments are usually, the developer usually bears quite a bit of burden.
absolutely.
In the past, if you really look at the history of WES, you will find that we have had to adopt, incorporate, absorb failed septic sewer systems brought on by development that didn't really meet our standards, but we had to do it in the public's interest. But it was initially built at the developer's expense, not the county's expense. But had we done it, it would have been done in a way that would have proved to be very, very expensive, and we've had some failures.
Yes.
Frankly, more failures than successes on privately built or privately initiated systems that didn't really prove out on paper to work. And so we're talking millions of dollars. And,
Absolutely.
we have to put on what's in the best interest of the citizens. of the
Absolutely.
district.
If I could respond to this particular development, just the sewer permit fees that the builder will have to pay to build the homes on it will be in excess of $10 million. That'll be a check written to Wes. We are more than capable and more than willing to build this permanent, or this temporary permanent pump station to the standards of Wes. And even to maintain it for a period of time till they can see that it's built to that standard. And the reason we're coming to you first is because there's a policy in place, 5.11 at Wes, that says no pump stations. And so we would need you to direct staff to change that policy to allow us to open the gate. Once we open the gate, this development will put almost 1/3 of the Sunrise Corridor through Damascus, opening up the rest of it for major economic development. And so it's a win-win. It's absolutely a win-win for everyone if I can get your support. But I need it before Wes looks at our application and says, no, we can't do it, because we have a policy that directs us that we cannot do it. That's why I'm here.
And the developer is who?
Excuse me?
The developer is who?
The developer right now is the group of property owners trying to get it done. The process is this preliminary application meeting on February 13th. That looks at the project in a general scope. There's like 27 different jurisdictions coming to have a say in it. For example, I've been working with ODOT. I'm the lead on the project. I've been working with ODOT for the last 4 years, showing them how this project allows the Sunrise Corridor to be built as a public-private partnership rather than a 4-lane expressway paid for only by the state of Oregon, which has no funds. Clackamas County, my thought is, because of that discussion that's been going on with 4 years now, Clackamas County has picked up the mantle of the Sunrise Corridor. This project allows the Sunrise Corridor to extend 1/3 of the way through Damascus. So it's an extremely beneficial project. Extremely beneficial.
Are you aware of the Sunrise Corridor visioning process that's underway right now?
Yes, that's, and
But
this
your
is all
property's
part of the
your
meetings.
property's east of that study area, correct?
Yes, 100%.
So it's because it's east of the project area, not in the project area?
No. Right now, currently, the Sunrise Corridor, Phase 2 ends at 172nd and Highway 212. The visioning process is basically from there through Damascus. It's my understanding. I haven't seen it.
Yep. I was at the meeting last night, as was Commissioner Schrader. The project area stops at the study area stops at 172nd.
And so what this is doing is the Sunrise Corridor, as you know, it's been going on for 30 years.
40.
Okay, so City of Damascus in 2012, as a city, adopted a particular route and a particular road section type through the City of Damascus. I was on the Transportation Committee for that. And so Happy Valley just adopted their comprehensive plan and basically said the Sunrise Corridor is a part of that plan, but it ends at 172nd, even though the plan ends at the 200 block, or the 190th block. And so there's this kind of gray area where, yeah, we have 8 lanes of traffic projected out to 172nd and Highway 212 and nothing past that. What I've done is I've picked up the public testimony for the last 20 years, which was this major component through Damascus, figured out that it goes right through this particular subdivision and accommodated that in this proposed plan. And so our work doesn't end at 172nd. What we're trying to do is get that through road through Damascus out to 232nd, out to 242nd, in effect creating a bypass for traffic. And it's really not a bypass, it's just extra lanes of traffic through Damascus. And our plan takes it from 172nd out to Richardson Creek, which is the next major hurdle.
I'll conclude my comments here, and that is that I would love to see the pipeline and sewage past 172nd out, actually beyond the
Right.
area you're talking about. So I'm not on the wrong side of this.
No, you're
But
not
the
at all.
prac-
None of you are. I
The
agree.
practicality, this is where I'll conclude my comments. The practicality is that to dig up the system before the corridor is built, in the third phase, you're talking about phase 3, we're in phase 2. It's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars just to build phase 2.
I understand
And we don't
that.
even have the money identified.
I understand
So for us to do any further investment until phase 3 is even on the table is premature, but you have to do it with the city. So I think you're starting the right process, but you need to do it with the city, and the city can approach us, and our staff can approach us. Until all that comes together, and ODOT, you got a big lift.
Absolutely, without a doubt, February 13th will be the first time that everybody's come together to discuss this and to look past 172nd. And what we're proposing on doing is paying for that ourselves. We're not asking you to pay for it. We're asking you to allow us to give you a check for $10 million to help with the infrastructure to the west of us.
Thank you very much. We're
Thank
going to
you.
move on
Appreciate it.
here. Just a
Thank you.
moment. Gary, would you like to explain the process?
I'm very aware of the process. Go ahead.
I'm going to
I'm sorry.
have Administrator Schmidt explain the process because there are many people listening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hammonds. You and I have spoken, and I know you've spoken with
Absolutely.
our staff, and we're doing everything we can to accommodate your request. We do have some constraints, though, which you know of, and Commissioners, you know of, but for the public. So the first step is the Water Environment Services needs to update its sanitary sewer master plan. And that is not scheduled to happen until about 10 years from now, but staff has already agreed they'll start that process this year. Unfortunately, it takes 1 to 2 years to finish that process.
And how much money?
I don't know the dollar amount, but there's a cost to revising the plan. Second, it has to be added, this project, to the WES's capital improvement plan, which you just are about to approve the next 5-year plan. Then there needs to be a regional system capacity improvements made that align with the sewer master plan, all before the construction can begin. So my staff has agreed to expedite this as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, there still is a time delay, as you know.
Absolutely, and definitely want to say I appreciate it. We are making great strides, without a doubt. One more little tiny little help is all we
Well,
need.
you bring to light a common theme and that we hear a lot. In Clackamas County, we are experiencing really a huge amount of growth of people
Absolutely.
coming in.
Yes.
And they have gravitated to our smaller towns like Canby, Molalla, Estacada, and Sandy. And
Certainly.
all those sewer systems are at capacity as
Yes.
well. And we're all competing for the same funds to expand. The governor has come up with a new housing bill that she's going to introduce in the legislature. And it calls for expansion of all this housing and a little bit of an expansion of the urban growth boundaries on cities. I says, okay, fine. Where does the money come to
Right.
pave the roads?
Right.
Where does the money come to put in sewer and water so we can service all this housing that she wants?
Absolutely.
And I have personally said that to her too. We have huge infrastructure needs just for our basic needs.
Yes.
And, you talk about infrastructure, and a lot of people don't think it's very fancy or sexy, and, it's not like a Christmas tree, but it is the basis and the foundation for everything we need moving forward. Thank you, Mike, for coming here today.
Thank you.
You betcha. Up next, Mike Hanks. It's the Mike Show today. Please state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
I always tend to speak softly, so I better get close so I can make sure it comes across. My name is Mike Hanks, 16,000 Southeast Keller Road. I started living in Damascus, I think, pre-kindergarten, lived in the area. This is a continuation of what Mr. Hammond talked about. I'm one of the property owners, and I have a background of development. So I probably developed 3,000 to 4,000 lots in my experience.
So you're a
And-
developer?
Yeah, yes, I am. I didn't make the mistake of getting out of it. We were building about 200-300 houses over in Del Boca Vista, over in Yamhill County area. McMinnville, Lafayette, Dayton. I've been on the Citizen Advisory Committee for Affordable Housing in Bend when people were gutting mobile home parks, trying to provide, reasonable solutions for that. I've been on the committee for Lafayette when they were trying to, it's a small community, much like the communities you look for, and the hired engineering services was trying to stuff them with a $15 million pump station, for sewer services, and an 1,800 citizen community can't afford that kind of stuff. So we tried to redo the lagoons and come up with different bubbler systems to be able to make affordable options, and ended up with a sequential batch reactor. So I'm familiar with the development process. I also remember being in the 8th grade, like what you're talking about with ODOT trying to solve Highway 212, which is only getting worse. Part of the 110 acres, we had a pre-app meeting last year, and of course the sewer issue came up. I've had 4 meetings with Wes. They're great people. They provided solid systems, and the I&I problems that they've solved over the years is to be acknowledged as a good accomplishment. The capacity issue going down Highway 212, upsizing the main trunk line is also important. They're worried about capacity issues. When you analyze it, it's a mathematical limitation where you got to be able to develop all of Happy Valley to its maximum allowed density, have a 5-year storm event, and take the old I&I, and then you would have a failure. You're not going to have that for a while. These are good people, but the policy that Mike talked about is holding things back. You're concerned about developers coming in, and that's one of the reasons why I learned a long time ago to be a good developer. You get in, you get out, and they never remember your name. That means you didn't cause problems.
And you don't hold. You get in, you get out, you don't hold.
Well, and you don't cause problems. If they don't remember your name, it meant you did a good job. If they remember your name, you probably did something wrong. That's just the truth. We want to be able to provide an option to solve that financing problem that you're looking at. Because when you look at the ramp-up amount, that the bonds and all that Wes is going through, it's a large, steep undertaking that you guys are taking. And by being able to do a temporary permanent pump station, this is just not a whim without a lot of thought behind it. It allows to be able to go into an existing basin. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just finish.
It allows you to go to an existing basin. Talking to Wes, they're saying that we could go down Highway 212, we could expand the main line up, which is needed at our own dollar, to municipal standards, because it has to be approved at that. We would have a pump station that would allow better flows. We don't want to do what's called the step system. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but Terrebonne is doing that through DEQ. It's not a good solution. A municipal-built, temporary, permanent pump station is the best alternative. And this is a time where you have landowners coming together, which normally doesn't happen. We did it in the Newburgh-specific plan because most development, you have these friggin' cul-de-sacs and no one has connectivity. We took landowners, we mapped it out, and we allowed to have grid systems and make a good community. We have these people willing to do it at this time. This is the first time since I was in the 8th grade, that there's an option, and maybe it's the wrong option for the Sunrise Corridor, but no one's ever provided an option in 50 years. And we'd like to be able to leave something. I grew up on that farm. I put in the fence. I blew up the stumps. I did the building, and I was the tansy monger for my dad when he had his sheep and all that kind of stuff. I'd like to be able to leave a legacy that's nice. And, my expiration date is approaching. I'd like to be able to solve, the Sunrise Corridor and build something that isn't, as you're saying, Paul, developers come in and leave a shit show for you guys to clean up. All this has to be approved by everyone else. The reason why Mr. Hammond is, as you're saying, jumping the fence is because to be proactive and be useful of staff's time for pre-apps, we have consistently gone to the municipalities ahead of time and tried to identify what the issues are. I've talked to Avi about the transportation. I've talked to Wes about the sewer. I've talked to Sunrise about the water. All those things, we have reasonable solutions that would be approved and reviewed by people that you trust, who'd be the gatekeepers. And we just like a pathway to be able to start that to help deliver a solution.
Thank you very much for coming forward and giving us a perspective that you have that is very important.
Okay, thank you.
Up next, Rick Dodge. Please state your name, your area of residence. You have 3 minutes. if you can do it. I got you, didn't I?
Don't start me yet.
Okay.
Rick Dodge, Milwaukee, Oregon. And I love being in Clackamas County, and I mean that. And you guys have done a great job. I don't know who gives out the raises, but you all need a raise.
Oh, my God, did you hear that?
And I'll sign it. Nevertheless, I think Commissioner Schrader's okay with that.
Well, it's nice to have people tell us we did a good job.
No, okay. If you give me some more time, I'll
Okay.
finish what I was going to
Keep
say.
going, just keep going.
Okay.
Comparing what everybody makes in the county and other jurisdictions and so on and so forth, you guys are underpaid. Okay. What I saw this morning got me up and going and on the news, and it wasn't the mainstream news. It's too bad that we have to go elsewhere and research things, and but remind me of what that was here, because I want to start off with something else, and this is a real change of pace for today. DEI. I had no idea what was going on other than the vote that was taken, and I was pretty disappointed in that vote to keep it going. But I also thought to myself, there's some things that I just don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Does it have something to do with Salem? We are spending $62 million on DEI.
We meaning the country,
The state,
state.
just the state. And the control of that situation is just unbelievable. Anyway, so here I'm listening to the radio a week or so ago, and I find that it has been dismantled. Now, I don't know all the particulars or how or what, but if this was a traffic cop and he saw me in my car when I found out that news, he'd probably pull me over for because we've become such a government-dependent society that this creation of this is just gone crazy. Anyway, so I worry, everybody that I talk to is so worried about the future for our grandkids. And
Continue.
the lowering of educational and moral standards, it drives me crazy. But the thing that I was really proud of, that you took some leadership here, and I was really concerned on that before the vote came up, the first vote I think it was, that there was a concern about the lack of tort reform and lawsuits coming in. Well, I think you may know me a little bit by now. I wouldn't give a rip about that, because you got to have some leadership to do what's right. And friend of mine's wife, let me get to why, what got me up this morning.
Make your point, Rick, and wrap it
Okay.
up. Thank you.
Approximately 8 million illegal aliens have crossed the border, and they have been enabled to the point where, I saw this on the news, on the East Coast, and it's coming here. 2 cops were trying to stop, you know what I'm talking about? And that's a huge concern, and that's why I would love to see Clackamas County remove their sanctuary status.
We don't, Gary, do we have a sanctuary status?
Stephen, I don't think so, no.
Clackamas County is not a sanctuary county.
But we are a sanctuary state, is that right?
I'm not sure what you mean, sir.
In other words, if it keeps ICE out of the
There is state
enforcement
law.
picture.
There is state law that prohibits local law enforcement from aiding with some federal immigration people. Correct.
Is that not sanctuary?
I'm not opining on that, sir.
No. I can opine on that, and I don't believe so, Rick.
Okay. Because it was that situation and many others that have created the inability to incarcerate, which doesn't quite fit with our security. Thank you for giving me a few more minutes. I was kind of hoping I'd have a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you,
Commissioner
guys.
Savas would like to comment.
Just so overall, I would say that on both these topics, there's a lot of misunderstanding and information out there, even in the media, that's not actually correct. So we don't have enough time here today to go over all the things that are actually factually wrong in some of the reporting and so forth. So it's a conversation for another time and another place, but there's a lot of misinformation on both those topics.
Thank you, Paul, for that. I just got a text message confirming that, yes, indeed, Oregon is a sanctuary state.
That's what I thought.
But, Gary, we have not taken on a sanctuary county status, correct?
That is correct.
And I don't intend to do that.
Here's why I wouldn't even suggest it if I didn't think it was possible, but there are a couple of counties across the country within sanctuary states that have removed themselves from that status to protect their citizens. So that's the only reason I'm bringing that up.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay.
Appreciate your comments, as always. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to testify? Seeing no one in the room, Tony, do we have anyone online who would like to testify?
If you would like to testify, please use the raise hand feature and I will call on you in the order received. Madam Chair, I do not have any hands raised.
Thank you, Tony. I will now close the public communication portion of this meeting, and we will move on. Gary, what's next?
Next is County Administrator Update. That's me. I like to recognize our county employees for the great work they do. And today I want to recognize an employee of our Disaster Management Office, Molly Cajano, who is a Community Planning Coordinator. During the recent ice storm that we had, as you know, one of the areas of our county that was really impacted was up in the Hoodland area. They had some loss of power and lost water at some point, and our staff and disaster management helped support that community, and Molly was the lead for our county supporting that effort in Hoodland. And she got some incredibly wonderfully nice notes that I want to share with you about the work that Molly did in the Hoodland area. That is, Molly is an asset to your team, professional, thoughtful, and informative, a pleasure to work with, and a friendly face. And a second letter said, Molly, in particular, patiently listened to locals tell the stories of the storm and how it impacted them. She was the caring face of Clackamas County and was very calming during our recovery efforts from this traumatic weather event. So thank you, Molly, for your excellent, outstanding work, and all of our disaster management staff who helped support the community during this recent ice storm. Finally, a quick announcement. Commissioners and the public, next week's board business meeting, Thursday, February 8th, is at 10 a.m. It is not an evening meeting. It's at 10 a.m., a morning meeting. That is my update for today. Thank you, Commissioners.
Very fine, thank you. We're up next is Commissioner Communication, and Commissioner Schrader, you're up.
Well, had a busy week this week. I've been talking to a number of our mayors. One of the mayors I had an opportunity to sit with this week was Mayor Fitzgerald from Wilsonville. And we've been talking about economic development and what's been happening there in Wilsonville. And I'm also scheduled this week to visit with the Wilsonville Chamber folks, because I've been inquiring with our chambers how they have implemented, and we have information about this, quite frankly, as well, through economic development, our business, the recovery plans and the plans that they had, the business recovery centers that we set up with CARES dollars during, everything that had happened in the last few years, including the pandemic, ice storms, fires, and so on and so forth. So I've been doing that work because I think it was a good program, and I'm kind of trying to get a feel of how we can maybe in some way help continue that with the private sector. So one thing I've been doing, I also had lunch with Lisa Manash, and she is the executive director of the Oregon Community Foundation, and we had a good discussion about recovery centers and what that might mean and what that might look like, and who we can be talking to at their organization to see what is available out there as we move forward with that initiative. I did listen in yesterday evening. I'm not the principal on that, but the Sunrise Corridor Community Visioning had a steering committee, number one, and I was in the public listening in because I have fond memories of that area because I was here when Damascus actually was first incorporated as a city. And where they're talking about the visioning for, as we heard today from members of the audience, for the Sunrise Corridor moving forward. And I have great hopes that Commissioner Savas will continue to do a fantastic job on that committee. And thank you for having me listen in. I really appreciated that. Today, I'm going to be meeting with the folks with the Willamette Falls and Landings Heritage Group, and that is the group that's working with Representative Lori Chavez de Reamer to make a large heritage site. I think we'd be the first heritage site west of the Mississippi, and that would include all the way from Wilsonville and Canby and those areas all the way up here to the falls and the beyond up to Portland, because the falls are such an important part of our history, not only because of the settlement there, but also because of the fact that the tribes have had a large presence in our history as indigenous peoples living in that area. That is about it with all I have today, except today, tomorrow, remember, is Groundhog Day. So let's see if we're going to get winter or spring and no more ice storms. Okay, thank you, Chair.
I'm optimistic.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit today about, some of the things that have been coming up, and a lot of people approaching me about certain topics, some of which even came up from the audience here today. But just to build on what Commissioner Schrader was talking about, last night was the first meeting of the Sunrise Visioning process. And I remember over the years, say it's been 32 years, that's been 35 years, it's been 38 years, now we're at 40 years since the Sunrise Visioning project was created by county commissions who can't even remember the names of the county commissioners 40 years ago that started that, but I do remember some of the staff people that initiated that and thought of it as really the future of the county for growth for both housing, jobs, economics, schools, services, and so forth, because the county, most of the land's used up, and that's where a lot of the land is, and I certainly agree there's a tremendous amount of opportunity out there, but the city of Damascus was formed with the hope of filling some of the gaps because state law basically dictates that cities really are, very complex, but cities are the initiators of development, and for the most part, counties can do some, but for the most part, the laws are catered to the cities, and anything that is in the cities' boundaries or their urban growth boundary or management area gives them rights and authority. So all of this Sunrise project area from Highway 205 for the Interstate 205 to 172nd is all within either the city or the urban growth boundary of the city, future urban growth boundary. Urban growth management area is technically what it's called. So eventually, all of that study area will be in the boundary of the city as property owners willingly ask to incorporate or be annexed into the city. So that's how it's structured. So with that, and talking to some of the people last night that I haven't seen in a while, and some people I've never met before, and other discussions regarding DEI or EDI or IED, whatever people want to use, and a number of other topics. I spoke to this before, so my colleagues have heard this, and it's not a criticism toward my colleagues or my staff, but just an observation of being here for a few terms here, and that is that there was a time when I could say, well, go to the website and look under our meetings and you'll find that topic and you'll see what we really did or what we really said and what the staff's recommendation was or wasn't, and you'll see the entire, for the most part, you could see the whole thing and even watch the meeting. So when I came here in 2011, we didn't have access to that. And I would say I want to applaud our staff, the prior administrators, my colleagues on the commission at the time, and PGA, which Mr. Schmidt was the head of PGA, helped structure all that and get all those meetings so they're findable, dating back to at least 2011. And I think we all took pride in that. I took pride in it because it was, one effort for transparency to make sure that people had access to our government they could see. And, I could easily then, several years ago, say, go to the website, you'll find it all. If you have any questions, follow up. But a lot of it's there. We can't do that anymore because we don't really have the same structure in the detail. And on this DEI thing, for example, there was no work session on DEI in which we made any decisions one way or another. And there's a lot of misinformation out over there and running out of, sometimes you get almost exhausted trying to explain what really happened, and not really, every day this week, that conversation comes up along with even, again, the Sunrise Corridor and what's happening, what's not happening, and other issues out there. So I just wanted to say that the night meeting one is another example of something that was initiated back then, and again, I applaud my colleagues then and forward for supporting that. It was another way for people who are working every day, hard at work, who might have an opinion or a concern about something, about anything in the county, even sometimes not even related to what we do, but they think they are, but gives them access to talk to us. And, the board voted and was not a unanimous vote. That's fine, and I support that decision. But I just hope that we can get to a point that we can be recognized and make the steps to elevate transparency or access to what we do so that when people come to us on these things, they have a better understanding. But in my tenure here, it's almost like starting over in 2011 when I was trying to explain to people when there were no recordings in 2011, I can refer to for what took place in 2009 and 10 and 11. And some of you that have followed our meetings have recently heard me talk about governance and the promises made when this commission went from 3 commissioners to 5. I was not on the commission when that change took place, but I was certainly watching it, and I listened in on some of the meetings in which the governance committee, the citizens committee, had put forth that. Commissioner Shull's not here today, so that's why I'm not going to speak directly to that, but essentially the idea was we'll try this. This is the first step, and in a few years we'll come back and we will reform the committee or reassemble the committee and then talk about next steps or how everything's are going. So, as an example, I only bring that up because as an example, I can't direct people to the public meeting or the tape or the video or the recording or anything where that took place. All there is written documents and typed documents, if you will, and some of the people still around that recall that. So there's just an example of just one of the things where back in that time, and I'm just hoping, again, we can move back to the point in time where you can find it on the website, and while people were speaking today, I went on the home page and I even typed in on the search engine DEI, and though you can find some other stuff, you really can't find the content in which what's happened in the last year on this topic has any explanation. There's no FAQs that I know of. Gary, am I wrong on that? There's no FAQs anywhere that I'm not aware of on the DEI thing?
There's a memo on the August 1st, 2023 issues. That's where the memo is.
Okay. But I couldn't find it here, and nor can the public find it. But I think it might be informative so people know what we really did do and what we really did do. Now, it's a topic, I just think it's more of a divider than it is a uniter, because half the people might feel, I don't know what the number is, but half the people feel what they heard they like, and half the people heard what they heard don't like it. So it's split. So it's not as though there's a win here, I don't think. It's just more being informative. But if we could somehow make that easier to find, I can certainly find some of the DEI committee meetings and so forth if I search far enough, but I couldn't find any FAQs on that. But if we can make that easier to find, that'd be helpful, Gary, and I can refer people to that. But if there is a clear, again, FAQs on that, that would be helpful. Chair, that's all I have for today.
Thank you. Commissioner West, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Chair.
You bet.
I hope that isn't too hard to hear what I'm going to say and everything. And even though I'm remote, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to do that as I take care of some stuff for the Navy. I want to bring a little bit additional context and perspective and explanation to what Commissioner Savas talked about. Can you guys hear me still?
Yes.
You can. Okay, sorry. And you know, and kind of break down, at least with the DEI thing, how it was handled administratively. It was a function of the administration to set up the DEI.
Excuse me, Commissioner West.
Yes.
Your volume all of a sudden changed and we couldn't hear you.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, that is better. Thank you.
Okay, so the DEI department was set up and established as a function under the authority of the county administrator. And as it was assessed and looked at as whether being efficient and appropriate and even being congruent with county core values, the administrator has the authority to make adjustments to that department as he sees fit under his authority. But with that, on this specific topic, there was quite a bit of community involvement. There were meetings that we had that were full of our community members and people in Clackamas County on both sides of the issue, talking about it and debating about it in a very respectful manner. And as we look at the budget issues and the budget items, Gary has the authority to restructure that and to make sure it's functioning such. And one major issue is there was a lot of swag parties. There was a lot of ideological promotions of specific ideologies that were quite controversial, but a lot of the core functions that were necessary for the county were not being performed, like the reporting on Title II and Title VI. And so making those structural issues to make sure that we were meeting the federal requirements as a county that weren't being done, making sure that we were being efficient with every tax dollar, and still making sure that people had avenues to speak to management and administrator if they actually happened to find that they didn't have a voice as an employee or in the workplace are still in place. But DEI as a promotion and a functioning of the county has been dismantled. And I think that it's not just, I know it's controversial and sometimes leadership can be controversial in my opinion. And I think in many ways here that Clackamas County has shown some moral clarity and leadership by dismantling the EDI department. In Clackamas County, I know that we believe in classic liberal values. We believe in good American values. We want good government over ideology. That's not what was happening in that department. We wanted to promote and hire people based on their merit, their skills, their talent, and competency. And when you read the website, that wasn't clear. That wasn't the message being conveyed on the EDI website. That's how we promote and operate. A lot of focus is on immutable traits. And I don't think that we should incessantly focus on people's immutable traits and unnecessarily racialize the workplace in the county. And that department had sent some incredibly divisive and heavily influenced communications that were very much promoted by what I believe was a radical ideological worldview. And it measures fairness on the equality of outcomes rather than the equality of opportunity. And that's an important key component to why it is good that this is no longer a prominent department within the administrative office. And now I believe that personally that Clackamas County can better serve its constituents regardless of their immutable traits, while making sure that everyone belongs and feels like they're a part of a workplace that allows them to be effective and promotes their skill set and provides opportunity for mobility. And I think that should be our focus. And I think that that is not all that radical when you look at it that way. And maybe we could have found more opportunity to be even more transparent, but I do believe that the glide path in which the administrator led this county through under his authority showed a lot of wisdom, actually, and I think it was overall the correct move. It was the right thing for the county to not have this be such a large influence in our local government. So I always want to be more transparent, and we can always look to that or make it easier for people to see or be engaged in what we do. I know we daily strive for that. That is a core value of who we are. But on the EDI thing specifically, I do believe that the way that this transpired over months of debate, there's news articles on this and public debate on the whole topic, but the way that the county administrator decided to lead on it, I thought was pretty solid. So I just kind of wanted to give a different perspective while agreeing with my colleague and then offering kind of another nuance to it and my personal thoughts about it. So I'll leave it at that, Chair, since I am not even in the building and I'm just this floating voice coming out of the ceiling. But I'll have a lot more to report next week also, and I look forward to being back in the building with you guys.
Thank you, Commissioner West. Commissioners, as you know, you get a copy of the green sheet, which is the schedule moving forward, and maybe commissioners didn't read it, but we have an evening business meeting scheduled for March 14, and that's very strategic because I mentioned if hot topics or areas of interest came up, we would be open to the public. And the reason for that evening business meeting is I hope we have attendance. We have not had attendance at our evening business meetings for very many months, and it is an extra cost to staff and administration. But the reason for the March 14th Thursday evening business meeting, because the legislative session, short session, will have concluded. And I'm hoping for to get updates from our staff. Gary, I also want to invite the Clackamas County legislators to attend that meeting, and they can offer their perspectives and talk to the public regarding what was accomplished in the legislature. There's a lot of high hopes in this very short amount of time of 45 days, and for them to explain, number one, I think the process and why the short session was set up and what they accomplished. And that leads me to another point. As we have this short session, commissioners, we have a priority in the session that we're really serious about accomplishing, and that is the extra $21 million for our courthouse. And talking to Trent Wilson, he says, from what I understand, that's my marching orders from the commissioners to make sure we get that. There are many other ancillary issues. You know, we could talk about tolling all day long. We can talk about all these other social issues, homelessness and housing and Measure 110 and addictions and this, which the legislature probably will consider those. Whether we get the results we're hoping for, it is uncertain at this point. But remember and keep our eye on the ball. And our eye on the ball is, commissioners, our $21 million for the courthouse. Some commissioners may want to run down and testify and work on their particular topics, and I suppose any commissioner, has the freedom to do that. But please check in with staff and at least Trent to make sure that is something that we want to accomplish this session. It's just my personal opinion, but I don't think we're going to get a lot of resolution on the really hot topics affecting Clackamas County in this short session. And I don't think anybody down there, including the governor, is talking about tolling, unfortunately. So that's just my opinions going forward. Thank you, commissioners. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.